Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Story. Today we have Jeremy Willis with us. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you. Welcome to you guys. Or hello to you guys. Whatever.
Whatever.
I mean, you're more than welcome to welcome us. I feel very welcomed.
I feel welcome as well.
You know, you just figured out who the rookie is on this.
So, Jeremy, share with the listeners kind of what makes you tick, what are you all about, what do you do, what do you love, that kind of thing.
I am a middle-aged white guy that happens to love ranching, agriculture, music, history. I'm a passionate Canadian, and I'm a proud agvocate. I'm an agricultural advocate. I believe very strongly in promoting best practices for all production of food.
Oh, I love that. This is a conversation I've been wanting to have, and we haven't
Yeah,
had
I'm very
someone
excited
who can
about
have
this.
a good conversation about this yet. Our grandfather was a farmer. All our we're related on our cousin or on our mother's side, and he had 5 daughters, so no one took over the farm when he left. So it's kind of one of our goals is to buy back that farm. But we love nature and all of this kind of stuff. So on that note, before we dive into maybe the ag side of things, or maybe this is what you love about Canada, but what is it that you love about Canada?
I love how we have 4 seasons, how we have so many different and diverse peoples and cultures. I love the wild spaces and the opportunities we have to see nature up close and in its real form. And much as I hate to say it, that it's becoming less and less as more and more people choose an urban lifestyle. So for me, I'm grateful and thankful that as a Canadian, I can live free and I can live with and symbiotically with nature.
I love this. And this is very much the rural way, especially in Canada, I would say. So why don't you share, a lot of our listeners wouldn't have necessarily lived in a rural life. What does that look like to you, and what are the things specifically that you love so much about it?
Well, looks like to me, this morning I've seen 2 or 3 deer, pair of beavers. There's a colony of marmots that seems to want to take residence under my house. I wasn't expecting tenants, but I guess I've got them.
Do you have chickens around? Is that what they're kind of hoping for?
No, marmots are vegans, but they're doing well taking my lawn down for me, anyways.
Well, at least you've employed the tenants.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
At least they're doing something.
We're bartering for rent. The flora and fauna. I mean, there's different species of trees, grass, wildflowers. I don't know how many different species of birds, little brown bats that are helping keep the mosquito population down. I mean, you're never alone out here. And for me, every day is different. I'm in the interior of BC in what's called the Caribou region. If you don't like the weather, just wait 15 minutes; it'll change.
Right.
And we can see so much and regain a bit of a pace with the land to be a little more back to our roots, I think.
Yeah, because, I mean, for the vast majority of human history, we have lived pretty much outside with the elements. Like you said, I love that, and I want to bring that point up, the seasonality of life too, right? I think when you are spending a lot of time around nature, you realize, as much as we like to talk about, logic and linear life and, the stages, everything is a season. Right?
Oh,
Everything,
absolutely.
Life, death. You're confronting death more when you live that close to nature. You're seeing it around you, and even at times participating in that ritual.
You bet.
What do you think about that? Like, what do you said you enjoy the season, so I want to bring that out more. Like, How have you learned to understand the seasonality of life by living with, like you said, real nature, raw nature, not made up, not fantastical, but like here it is right in front of us right now?
What have I learned? I would say that I've learned to embrace it. There's a commonality in everything. You know, we're young, we're middle aged, we're old, we die. We can rail against that. We can stave it off as long as we can. But the fact is death and taxes, they're both coming no matter what. So living within the seasons and stuff like that, you begin to, I guess, have a better idea of how things are going to be, and perhaps I guess less fear of what's coming.
Yeah, acceptance is kind of how we overcome fear, I guess, right? Is you like I love that what you said.
Either that or we run like hell. One of the two.
Yeah. But where are you going to run, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It will hunt you down.
Indeed.
So you're in ranching, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And cattle raising. I guarantee a lot of people that are listening to this don't have any experience in how that works. Why don't you walk us through what that business is like, why it is a lifestyle, not just a job, and the enjoyment that vocation can bring to you as a lifestyle. Like you said, so many people are rejecting the rural lifestyle, but they don't even understand it. They've never experienced it.
Correct. Yeah. Many people are influenced by watching what they see on television and what they read, the magazines, the media, the ads, the things that are designed to take money from their pockets. In terms of cattle ranching, for your point about lifestyle, yeah, it is a lifestyle. It's the lifestyle, not the living. You're not going to make $1 million raising cows. In my case, I raise purebred Charolais with my father and mother. They are breeding stock. And so we are trying to raise animals of a particularly high quality that their genotypes will be passed along to their offspring and thus improve the breeds that they are crossed with or other purebred herds. So the reason it's a lifestyle is that it's 24/7, 365. You don't really have time off because you're on call constantly, particularly in calving season, which is for me my Christmas. Busy but so rewarding. The new life, the new season, the new beginnings, seeing new pairs begin, and the love and affection from the cattle to their offspring and things like that, and investing all your energy into making sure that they're comfortable and safe and going to thrive. So, that's not something that you can just say, well, it's 5 o'clock, I'm done. That's every 4 hours or every 2 hours, you're out there again. And splitting it amongst the people here on the ranch, you can get a break, you can have a sleep sometimes, and but by the end of it, you're pretty tired. And when that's all done, well, you're into the next section, which is making sure everybody's ready to be turned out and preparing them for breeding. And it just goes around and around in circles. As the seasons change, so too does the jobs that you need to do. Plus, out here, we're preparing for winter, and it's much more than just, saying, well, I'm going to budget for another fuel bill this year. For us, it's cutting firewood. It's prepping for winter with bedding and that kind of stuff for the animals. And yeah, there's a lot to it, and I don't want you to think that it's an unending grind of drudgery.
Right,
but
right.
It's a day-to-day existence that cows don't wear wristwatches, and we can't either.
Yeah. So I loved what like you said. It's your Christmas when this happens. You get to you love this experience, and I also love what you're saying is there's no end goal here necessarily. This like it's a lifestyle, but tell us of some of the rewards that you get from it, like the joy that it brings.
Oh, well, in my case, seeing a calf, bounce off the ground type of thing, just been born and struggles to its feet and begins to nurse. That's a wonderful feeling, and seeing the cow look after the calf, and or in the rare cases where they might need assistance or something, knowing that my intervention or the intervention of all of us as a family has saved a life, and or in some cases 2 lives, and made sure that they will prosper and hopefully have a long and productive life. So that for me is incredibly rewarding, knowing that I've been able to influence something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Every moment of the job gives you like kind of a feeling of accomplishment too, I would imagine.
Oh no.
No? Okay, let's go into that then.
No, there are some jobs when you wish your dad was there instead of you, I'll tell you that.
True.
But I mean, they have to be done. Nobody likes to say, I have to miss this, that, or the other thing, important events or something, but, we got a cow calving. No one likes to say, I'd like to, but there's a forest fire pretty close, so I need to stay close to home. No one likes to say, I'd love to go to that wedding this weekend, but, we're getting 4 days straight of good sunshine. We got to put up hay.
Right.
We do, just as we don't watch a clock, the calendar is merely a suggestion. We go by the weather, and if it's pouring down rain and you don't feel like you can work in that, then there's always stuff that you can do indoors in a shop or in a house. So yeah, it's a commitment to a slower pace than an urban lifestyle. And it's a commitment to I guess a long-term belief that what you're doing is worthwhile.
Could you walk us through a bit, like what it's like to be at that slower pace, but be working so hard, right? Because a lot of people, if they want a slower pace, it's like retirement. It's like they don't, but you're working way harder than people who like are on a fast pace, maybe, because like you said, the work is never done. You've got to have something, like I guess what you're saying is what drives you is the ability to say, well, what I'm doing matters. But that's a conclusion that you have to come to. Do you remember when you realized that? Was that always just there for you? Or what was the moment where you're like, what I do matters?
I grew up with it.
Right.
My grandfather started this ranch. My parents took it over. I was born and raised here. I grew up in it. I know why and how and when these things have to happen. And I have lived in a city. I spent 10 years in Kamloops, BC. I've gone to school in Vancouver, and I've seen the differences, and I can honestly say that getting home has been a major sigh of relief every time I crest the hill and see the driveway.
So.
Yeah.
How many acres is the ranch?
At the moment, I believe it's 155 deeded. So we would be considered quite small, particularly in prairie standards. BC, we're typically much smaller than prairie ranches and farms, simply because of the topography. We are plateau and river valley dwellers. We as cattle ranchers, we can utilize grounds that are simply completely unsuitable for crops. I wrote a song about this place called Jack Pine and Rocks, which is essentially the topsoil around here.
Right.
All you can do is raise grass, and so in order to utilize the land properly, you either run cattle or horses or sheep, I suppose, and that's all that this dirt is good for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How many? So approximately 155. How many cattle do you have on the ranch? Approximately.
We sold out the majority of stuff. I want to say 5 years ago, or perhaps 6 years ago. So at the moment, there's just a very small herd of 14 cows and their babies, and a couple of bulls and that kind of stuff. So I'm in the midst of, I guess, retiring, as is my father. My health isn't good enough to continue with the ranching lifestyle, which I guess gets back to what you were saying. It's not the years, it's the miles.
Right.
So I physically can't handle another season of looking after newborns and things like that, and so probably going to transition into something where we're grassing yearlings or something like that in order to maintain the ranch and that kind of stuff, but reduce some of the most hardest tasks that occur in the spring.
Absolutely.
How often do they calve?
Once a year.
Once a year.
Cows, countesses are the same. It's 9-month gestation period, so 283 days from breeding till birth, more or less.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And so in the heyday of the ranch, when you go through calving season, how many calves would you be birthing?
I recall 1 year, I think we had 38.
Okay.
There was 40 some odd cows. Reasonably large for a purebred Charolais operation in BC. Again, small compared to the prairies. But we didn't really have the hay base or the grass base to go beyond that.
So the capacity is determined by what the land can produce to feed the animal, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
And how do you measure that?
How do you measure it? There's I guess there's animal units that there's created by smarter people than me that determined how many animals could be safely grazed for a certain amount of time on certain areas. We have irrigated pasture, so we can rotate that kind of stuff. And we all had off-farm jobs that would buy hay from producers that had more hay land than they had need for their stock.
Yeah, I grew up in a fairly rural area, but my dad was a pastor, so I didn't get to do as much of the farming as I would have loved. But one of the things that I always noticed was that most of the farmers had other jobs. Can you talk about that and how that works? Because like you're talking about how the work is never done and there's all these things you have to do, but also you have another job. So like that is like, again, a commitment to a lifestyle. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, right? They think that, if a farmer's just does farming. No, they almost always have another side hustle of some sort, whether it's mechanics or et cetera. So talk a little bit about that, because that's a big part of the lifestyle I think people don't understand.
Well, I think in order to explain it, you have to look at food prices. And I'll use beef as an example. During the pandemic, at one point, roasts, medium-sized roasts, you can see the price tag or the shipping label, whatever you want to call it, on there, and it worked out to be about $38 per pound.
Right.
We, as producers, if we are selling feeder stock or soon-to-be slaughtered stock, may or may not get a little over $2 a pound.
Wow.
So if you want to find out why farmers and ranchers have a side hustle, it's because we are not making the money that all the middlemen are, and our cost of production has steadily raised, in fact, tripled or more over the last decade. We also got hit with BSE, and fortunately, just about, I want to say 5 or 6 days ago, I can't recall what the Western Producer newspaper had reported on it, but we are now finally removed from the at-risk for BSE or mad cow disease designation. Our country is considered clean again. And that may or may not open up an opportunity for younger people who wish to ranch, but we'll see. When we are selling animals for the same prices that we did 10 years ago, and our fuel costs have, tripled or more, that's just one example of what's going on. There is a class action suit down in the States where they are investigating the big packing houses for collusion and for manipulating the market in order to keep prices down for the farmers and increase prices as they sell it. And hopefully that comes to some sort of resolution that will prevent some of that market manipulation. And you can hear me trying to dance around the subject without getting myself into a position for libel
right.
here.
I like it, though. I like it.
Our costs of production raise steadily, but our sale prices have not. And when people demand their $2 cheeseburger, well, okay, that meat's got to come from somewhere. And in order to sell it for $2, somebody is going to work their magic so that they're paying the least amount of money for the animals at the very beginning of it, and then every bit of value added to it, they will add another 25% to, and that's why you end up with premium cuts at $38 a pound. It's a strange market. I think it was John F. Kennedy who said that, and I could be wrong on this. I might have the wrong president, but it was the farmer is the only person in the world who buys at retail, sells at wholesale, and pays the freight both ways.
Wow! Yeah. That is an insightful statement. I feel like there's so many misunderstandings right now between rural and urban people. You having lived in both urban and rural lifestyle, what do you think is the greatest misunderstanding that maybe people who listen to this podcast could understand about the rural lifestyle? I'll share mine and then you can share. But I think that the biggest difference personally is they don't understand how much farmers love the land, love the animals, love the lifestyle, and they blame them. They think if you're a farmer that you're somehow, you hate animals, you want to kill them, you're using them. There's this whole ethos around not understanding how much care the land actually gets from farmers.
Well, you hear that sound? That's the can of worms being opened.
Yeah. I think it's a good can of worms.
Fair enough. So, this urban-rural divide is something that we have dealt with for years and years and years and years, and it can be exhibited in so many different ways. I mean, you can look at we were talking about seasons and death and things like that, and you can look at how many people have absolutely no concept of death.
Yes.
They fear it. They refuse to acknowledge that it is a natural part of life. It's something wrong. It's something bad. It's there's also a complete lack of understanding of where their food comes from.
Mm-hmm.
We have people who, well, I don't understand why people are farming soybeans when they can just go out and buy them. Well,
yeah.
Sorry, it's
the density.
It's fact. They seem to think that a supermarket creates the food for them. And that is just not the case. It has to come from somewhere. If there was one good thing about the pandemic, my opinion again, it's that we finally proved unequivocally that farmers and ranchers are not destroying the environment. Okay. During the pandemic, the national cow herds of North America did not change. They remained the same millions of animals. We kept the tractors running. The trucks still transported the animals because people still needed to be fed. Farmers didn't stop. They stopped going to town.
Right.
But
yeah,
they didn't stop ranching and farming. Agriculture continued. And yet pollution magically decreased by thousands of tons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. I guess that must have been consumer transport and airplanes. I think so. Yeah, let's go with that. And, we've finally proven without a shadow of a doubt that agriculture isn't ruining the earth, as some people who get financial gain from it like to state. They throw out their opinions. They doctor video. They pay for studies that are not entirely factual, and then broadcast every part that they can to it. And there are people who believe it fervently. They're convinced that we are out to ruin the earth and destroy the animals. And that particular divide is massive because, of course, when you live in an urban setting, you can't, look out your window and see evidence to the contrary. You can right now simply because with the pandemic, the pollution dropped so much. I believe it was in India, for the first time in 47 years, you could actually see the Himalayas from one of the major cities. That's just because people stopped driving.
Right.
Right. I'm getting off on
no, not really. No,
here,
this is good. I like this tangent. Let's keep going with it because I think it's important. The whole purpose of this podcast, but the whole purpose, I think, of being human is trying to understand one another. And there's not enough people telling your story. And I liked how you said at the beginning that you're an agriculture advocate. And so
Absolutely.
This is a platform right now for you to advocate for the industry that you love and tell us why it's important. And you're doing a great job of that.
Okay, fair enough. I'll take your word for it. When I play this back, I'm probably going to wince, but
well, we all do.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's such a silly divide and silly, so I hunt, right? Mm-hmm. And I've had people come at me and be like, "Oh, that's really mean. You must hate animals," while they're eating their cheeseburger.
Right.
And it's like, where is your brain?
Fair enough. I myself do not hunt. I do predator control only because there's a field full of beef out here.
Yeah.
I will trade for venison. Mm-hmm. But I feel no need to shoot at any of the deer or anything that goes around this place. If a coyote goes after a calf, on the other hand, he's fair game.
Yeah, of course.
Am I being cruel? Am I being mean? My goal with my animals anyway, and I believe it's the goal for virtually every other producer, is they have the best life possible, given the means that we have. And for 15 minutes somewhere, they have a bad day. Mm-hmm. And then, we use their products. People don't understand that virtually every portion of a cow is utilized, other than specific risk materials that were banned when the BSE thing happened. So there's no spinal cord, central nervous system stuff anywhere in the system anymore. But for hunting, that animal has had a wonderful life. And then in a split second, depending on what kind of weapon you're using, suddenly it doesn't have that life and you have a full freezer. Mm-hmm.
You can eat off of for a long time.
Absolutely. And you're I'm not a fan of trophy hunting. But I mean, if you see something with a big rack and you want to take it, as long as everything behind the rack goes into your freezer, I'm a happy man.
Oh,
You know,
100%.
you've provided for your family. You've prevented the need to go to a supermarket to spend hard-earned money. I mean, you've done what we did as our ancestors did for thousands of years. What is wrong with that? You know, we got to this stage because of that ability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's, for me, it's that journey to becoming a hunter that has, I mean, I've always loved animals, but learning a turkey or learning a deer, learning how they think, where they feed, why they do what they do.
Absolutely.
There's a whole nuance into that side of hunting that doesn't get talked about. People just think you like go out and kill an animal because you're a savage and that's the end of it. But I came to love animals and nature so much more deeply because I spent time in it, pursuing it, you know? And I can only imagine
Absolutely. And you didn't get good at it right away.
Oh, and I'm still not good at it.
Talked over you.
No. That's okay. So I want you to speak to, as a hunter, I've spent a small amount of time on the land. As a rancher, you've spent an obscene amount of time on the land. How does being a rancher affect your relationship with the land? And like, when you walk out onto your ranch and you look at it, what do you feel?
Oh, I feel peace. And I wouldn't call it an obscene amount of time. I'd call it a sacred amount of time.
Yeah,
I like
I like that.
That is my church.
Yeah.
The sky is my cathedral ceiling. The connection to Canada and to our land and all that kind of stuff is only heightened by being on it. I mean, you can go to all sorts of tourist places, and I try to if I do travel, but I far more appreciate the subtle moments out. If we were riding looking for cattle or something like that, just those moments of quiet, and you realize that what you're looking at is exactly how it was supposed to be, and it's going to be that way long after you're gone if you did your job right. So it's a feeling of peace and contentment and thankfulness. I am beyond grateful that fate and chance has allowed me this life, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not in a bad way, but I do envy the life that you live. I romanticize about the opportunity to live the way that you live.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point, right? That really does bring up an interesting point.
The romanticism of, I don't know, do you guys have a beep button? I'll do the beeping for everybody wants to be a cowboy until it's time to do cowboy beep.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but I will say, at least our ancestors came over as poor, poor people who were more in the peasant category, right? And they got to come here and have their own land and be the lord of their own manor, right? Be the sovereign. I think that's one of the things I love about farming, and I think there's a movement, let's say, of people wanting that lifestyle but not understanding how to get it. And I think, like you said, maybe that'll encourage more young people to go into farming. I think that's actually kind of happening. And so, I mean, that's my plan. I have a number of friends who are, in their late 20s, early 30s. Who are like, you know what? I want that lifestyle. That don't have the knowledge that you do. So what would you say to people who didn't get raised like you didn't have the opportunities that you did to live the life you're leading, but want to maybe follow in those footsteps and try to achieve that kind of peace and tranquility and seasonality of life and like you said, the commitment to a slower lifestyle? How does someone try to get there, and what would be your advice on that?
Okay, well, in my opinion, right now is the time to do it, because another thing that the pandemic has demonstrated for us is a majority of jobs that we have developed and created for ourselves can be done from home. You can work remotely, and for people who want this lifestyle but also need the financial backing, this is the time. If you can work from home and you make the commitment that you'll put in your 8 or 10 or 12 hours to your job and then another 8 or 10 to your ranch or farm, or you split it with your partner or however you do it, your kids do some, you do some. I think you can do it. If I was going to tell somebody, I'd say find an advocate like myself, find a farmer who is willing to train you. Keep your mouth shut and your ears open. And I think the best way for anybody to learn anything is talk to the locals. We've seen this urban-rural divide happen, particularly during the fires when we had professional firefighters from the coast, come up through BC and insist, on certain things, and they didn't ask the locals where the best water sources were, when the winds changed, how things should be done in certain areas. Hundreds of years of practical experience was completely ignored, and we ended up with the Elephant Mountain fire. So for us, we would, at least for myself, I should say, I would be, if I was interested in a piece of property, after I'd looked at it and that kind of stuff, I would go and talk to the neighbors. And I would say, we're thinking about doing this. We're raw rookies. What would you do if you were us? There's a certain vulnerability in that. Nobody likes to admit that they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
Nobody wants to come in and be the rookie. But particularly in farming, lots of people think, oh, that's easy. Agriculture requires the most specialized generalists you can ever find. You have to know accounting. You have to know soils. You have to know biology. You have to know animal husbandry. You have to know veterinary skills. You have to know repairs and carpentry. You have to understand so many different things. It's not just as easy as kicking a bunch of cows out on a field and saying, go eat that. It doesn't work that way. So if you're going to get into this, please ask for help. Nobody would walk into a machine shop and say, oh, I can do that.
Right.
Because it takes a whole bunch of practical skills. You go through an apprenticeship, you learn, you intern, whatever you got to do. If you're thinking about doing this, another great way to do this is buy your property and have that and begin your plans and that kind of stuff, but also work for somebody else. Go to a ranch, say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I need to learn.
Right. Right.
If you're willing to invest whatever, 10, 15 hours a day free to a rancher, I'm sure they'll find something for you to do.
Right. Yeah. Because they have lots.
Absolutely. But this is the thing. If you're willing to trade time for labor or trade labor for education, you can really learn a bunch of stuff. For myself, as my health has worsened, I'm thinking about getting bees.
Right.
So I have the Beekeeping for Dummies book open, and I have 2 or 3 people who have apiaries who I trust and respect their knowledge, and I hope to, down the road have a few hives, because I've got not just book learning and not just, I see they have hives out, that ought to do it, but I have trusted mentors who will help me avoid some of the rookie mistakes that I would make otherwise. And by doing that, you save the animals if you're going to work on animals, and you save the soils if you're going to be cropping.
That's really good advice. We only have a little bit more time, but I wanted to talk about your music because you've mentioned it, and you mentioned you wrote a song. Tell us what music has meant to you and the role that it kind of plays, because it's very attached to the ranching lifestyle, from what I can tell. And my grandma loved to sing some of those, those old cowboy songs.
Yeah, right on. Well, I play 2 types of music, country and western. The music is the universal. Everyone can enjoy it. and I try to draw on Western heritage and history as a platform to educate folks about what we do, and hopefully it also touches younger ears, because most of the people that come to our concerts and things like that nowadays, or did before COVID, are middle-aged and up, and we don't really get the younger folk coming out to see and hear these things because they're wrapped up in the glitz and glam of urban lifestyle. So the again, a slower, gentler pace. We're looking to bring our lifestyle more to the forefront, and share with people what we do. And for myself, music is a good way to open that up, because we talk about these things. We talk about the characters in our history. We talk about characters here on the ranch and things like that. And then in between sets or at the merch table or wherever, suddenly you're in a conversation with people like yourselves who said, we're thinking about getting into this. And well, lo and behold, there you've got a connection. And really, going right back to the origins of your podcast, that common thread that goes coast to coast to coast is people.
Yes.
We all got to start pulling on the same rope, and that is helping one another and getting folks through things, giving them a hand up as opposed to a hand out, and we'll get through all this. So for myself, music is the medium in which I can, I guess, offer whatever knowledge I have in a safe and entertaining way. Well, somewhat entertaining. And yeah, it's a good way to bridge the gap between somebody who's wanting to learn but is too nervous to ask. But once I put myself on stage, well, I'm fair game. That's a public object. We can go and talk to him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I like that. You're using it to tell the story of your people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
100%.
Is that not one of the best uses that music could ever have?
Well, it also, it gives me a chance to express myself without too many fears of repercussion. We have a lot of keyboard warriors in the world, and
yeah,
no
just
doubt,
a few.
No doubt.
Just a few. Yeah.
Just
So
a few.
it's a way that we can all, well, yeah, I mean, you can listen or you don't have to. It's just, it's a safe way to bridge some gaps.
Mm. Is there a place people can find your music? Is it online?
iTunes. You can find. I did a Christmas album 10 or 11 years ago. The title of it is "Remembering Christmas." The track that went the furthest was called "The Cows Don't Know It's Christmas." Getting back to cows not wearing wristwatches or calendars.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can find it there. Rhapsody. I'm in a bit of a bind with Spotify right now because there's a distribution argument. I don't know how that worked. I just write them.
Right.
Let the other people handle the business stuff.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And I guess we're basically at the end. So is there any thought that you'd like to leave the listener with before we go?
There's 1,000 thoughts I'd like to leave listeners with. Be kind. All right. There's no need for everybody coast to coast to coast to constantly find fault. If you don't like something, but it's not hurting you, leave it be. Work on yourself. Do the work on yourself. And stop blaming farmers and ranchers for things that we don't control. And what we do is feed you.
Yeah.
So maybe thank a farmer and a rancher. We didn't quit during this COVID. So I don't know. Like I say, there's 1,000 thoughts I want to use.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll just have to have you back sometime.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, fair enough. I wouldn't mind that at all. But yeah, one final thing. If you need to find me on the Facebook, you can. It's Jeremy Willis Country Entertainer. or look for Jeremy Willis, you'll see a hick with a cowboy hat on. Well, you'll see a bunch of us probably, but pick the one that looks like me. And if you want to talk about cows, if you want to talk about agriculture, if you want to accuse me of ruining the earth, but you want a sincere and honest dialogue where we can share ideas and actually do something productive, please feel free.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, anyone who wants to even pursue farming that's listening to this, please contact Jeremy. I'm sure he'd love to have a chat with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I can't help, I can sure point you in the right direction.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.